This is a four-wheel drive electric UTV, which is pretty much a four-wheel drive golf cart. It used to run off of 8 large, heavy, 6-volt lead-acid batteries, but I'm converting it to run off of Tesla batteries, like this one here, and I figured maybe people would like to know about that. Now, I actually already had this working, but I had not put any lining in to prevent water from getting on the Tesla batteries, and wet lithium-ion batteries are a bad idea. So I ground off some tabs on this metal frame and put in this PVC lining, which was left over from a shower installation at our place. And that's going to keep spray off of the batteries, ground spray. But I'm going to show you all of the other steps needed to convert this thing to using Tesla lithium-ion batteries, which are going to last a lot longer and weigh a lot less than the lead-acid batteries. First, a disclaimer. I'm documenting what I've done to make this UTV cart use lithium-ion instead of lead-acid batteries. All batteries are dangerous as they store a lot of concentrated power, but lithium ions are prone to burn when damaged, and those fires are very difficult to extinguish. Be careful. Work in a safe place where a fire won't spread and burn down your house. This is a Tesla Model S battery. It's made up of 444 of the standard 18650 format lithium-ion batteries, the same ones that you would use in a handheld laser or that show up in most any lithium-ion battery if you take it apart. They are epoxied together along with some liquid cooling channels. Each cell has a little wire, which is also a fuse link, attaching the battery electrically to these metal sheet conductors. You can see how the sheet conductors are separated. On this side of the battery, we have 3 conductors, and on the other side, we have some more. And all in all, it puts them in series parallel, such that a bunch of batteries are in parallel with each other, and then that bank is in series to add up to 24 volts. You also don't want the 65-pound weight of this battery resting on these little fuse link wires, because they might bend, short, or break. So I had to build this little frame out of wood. It's poplar, actually. The battery is designed to be supported by these little flanges down the side of the module. So I set it up so that those flanges rest on this wood. I just used deck screws to put it together, and I did that very, very carefully with the battery in place as a form. You will start a nasty fire if you run a screw into one of these cells. It's really hard to put out. Now, this module is a 24-volt module. The cart is made for 48 volts. So I need 2 of these modules in series to give me 48 volts. Each module has 6 banks consisting of 74 cells in parallel. At 100% charge, each bank contributes 4.2 volts to the total. If we were to charge even one cell to more than 4.2 volts, or if we overdrain any one cell, that cell and likely the whole bank will be ruined. The cells in a bank are in parallel, so their voltage will all be the same. If they're not, the fuse link will blow. But if I charge the 24-volt battery, one bank may be at a higher voltage than the others, and that would allow overcharging it. So we use a battery management system like this one to keep the banks at the same voltage. Take a look at this schematic. There were 12 banks of lithium-ion batteries. That's 2 Tesla Model S modules. We need to monitor and control the voltage on each of these banks. To do that, we must have a wire to each bank. Tesla already has these wires set up, and they were wired to a circuit board. However, the circuit board wasn't helpful, so I pulled it and soldered on some wires so that they can interface with the battery management module. I've run into 2 versions of the Model S battery. The older one had wires soldered to the signal board. That would be this one. So I had to cut those wires off of the signal board and then extend them with these wires. The wires are small, you got to be careful. I got a plug like this, a set of plugs, and color-coded wires so that I couldn't mix them up. I carefully disconnected them from the board and extended them with these wires. That gave me a plug and socket arrangement so I could disconnect the BMS also. I measured the voltage on each of these wires so I could keep them in order. The newer battery used this fragile ribbon cable, which breaks easily, like that right there. So I had to solder wires to the ribbon cable, which isn't too hard. You use a small screwdriver just to scrape the insulation, like shellac, off of the ribbon cable. And then the little copper conductor takes solder really well. So it's not too hard to deal with. The BMS needs to monitor all the banks of both battery modules all at once to keep them all equal. So I mounted the BMS to the side of my battery box that I built. These batteries fit can be a challenge. The curved frame was an issue. I had to build up the underside of my battery mount to fit the curved frame. I'm not proud of it. It's ugly, but it works. Some care when wiring the battery modules up. If one were to short positive to negative on one of these modules, it will cause a nasty fire that is very hard to extinguish, along with fumes that you really don't want to breathe. The terminals on the battery management system are 10 millimeters. So I have my 10 millimeter socket here. Although I'm just going to thread it on by hand first. I have 3 wires to attach to this particular terminal. One is for charging. Another is for my 12-volt converter. And the last one, I don't remember what the last one's for. I'll have to look. A moment. Notice I am waiting until the last minute to attach to the battery so that all of this stuff is not hot, electrically hot, and not going to get into trouble. Right there, that is my charging cable. Now I'm going to connect the negative of this battery to the negative terminal on the BMS. And this goes there also, because that's my solid state relay. Here's what the conductive grease looks like. It's black and messy, and it will make a mess out of your fingers. Terminal on first, then I have a copper washer, again to improve conductivity, and then the main conductor. Well, bear in mind, I am not running the motor off of this BMS because it couldn't handle the current. This is a 100 amp BMS, shuts off at 150 no matter what. And when I tested this on flat land, full throttle, hit 150 quickly and exceeded it, so it shut off. Okay, there. That wire's in place and my hands are a mess. Okay. Since the cart pulls more current than the battery management system can handle, we're going to attach the negative connector for the whole frame, the whole system, directly to the battery. However, all other things like lights and the winch, this thing has a winch on the front of it, all of those are going to run through the BMS so that it can control the current, shut off when it's too low. We will just have to monitor this manually while we're driving to ensure that we don't exceed the battery's ability. Now let's see, I believe I'll do it this way so that the higher current device is directly on the terminal of the battery. The terminal bolts on the Tesla batteries are 13 millimeter. I don't know what the torque spec is on this. I make sure it's good and tight though. There was always a problem with the lead acid batteries. I had to retighten them every time I used the cart because somehow they, I guess, temperature change. They would expand and contract and loosen themselves, and when they are loose, they have a higher resistance, which then makes them hot and melts the lead. I hope to avoid problems like that with the Tesla battery. All right, I'm going to call that tight. Feels pretty good. Okay, before I put the second battery on, I have to wire up the connector that puts the two in series. And I don't want any surprises or shorts, so I have put this fine, highly technical insulator on the end of it, which is entirely adequate. We're only talking 24 volts. It's not going to break through a piece of paper. And this is actually a toilet paper tube and some masking tape. So all we have to do now is put that here. And tighten it up. And we can put the second battery on. Still pretty loose. Work it down to what feels good. That feels about tight. All right, now see, I'm safe here. This isn't going to short against anything. So I don't have to worry about shorting out my 24-volt battery here. Okay, the system is on. This little display came with the BMS, and it's somewhat useful. But mainly, you want to use the Bluetooth app, which you download from the store. It's called Balance BMS, which, wait, okay, you can see that it shows all of our cells. We're roughly at 3.8 volts each, with a difference of 0.011. This will balance down to 0.01. So it might do a little balancing when I plug it into a charger. At the moment it's not plugged into a charger. Clearly these batteries are not full. Why did I lose my display? Oh, I see. It times out. Anyway, we'll hook it up to a charger next and see what it does, because I need to show you the settings in the BMS system. Okay, so here's the balanced BMS output. You can see it's charging at 1.1 amps, that it is using 0.8 amps as a balance current. The difference voltage is 0.011. Cell number 1 is the high voltage at 3.806. It's taking an amp off of that, and it's giving it to the lowest one, which is number 7 at 3.796. and now it moved over to 11. But it does this. It balances all across all of them. Now there's parameters that you set up to make this happen. So let's go into the parameters setting here. Cell voltage high protect, I have it stopping at 4.06. Low protect is at 3.5. And the reason I'm not at 4.2, well, there's two reasons. One, if it goes over 4.2, it's going to wreck my battery. So I don't want it to ever go over. So I want to leave a buffer. But secondly, if I charge it fully to 4.2 and discharge it down to whatever the bottom is, 3 point something, each cycle, I'll only get like 700 cycles out of this. But if I charge it to 85% and discharge it down to 15%, obviously I'm not using all the capacity of my battery. However, it'll last something like 50,000 cycles then. So I want to not use the full capacity of the battery, just to save the battery. Anyway, you set the highs and the lows for each cell here. All right, come on, there. Here's the cell characteristics. It's a lithium ion. Cell reference voltage is 3.7. And I have a total of 12 banks. It's calling them cells, but that's what I've got, is 12 cells, 12 banks of cells. And this BMS is interesting. Most of the BMSs that I looked at and even tried first, you had to buy them for 12 or 14 or whatever. This one, though, I think it handles 16 total, but it doesn't have to have them all hooked up. I don't know whether it'll do an odd number or not, and that is going to matter to me later. But anyway, back to the status display. All right, we are charging at 1.1 amps, and it's got a while to go. But you can see it balancing. Oh, yeah. Well, it's still difference of, there, 0.09, and see the balance current went to 0 when it did that, when it got to a difference of less than 0.1. But it just found another difference, so it's back at it again. It'll keep doing that, and it keeps them balanced. It's actually pretty cool. It does a good job. Now, I need to show you the rest of the installation here. So, let's see. Well, right now we're charging, so I'll start over there. I'm going to charge this mostly off of solar. And I got a Victron solar controller because it is programmable. And one of the things I ran into is that it appears that most of the charge controllers that I can buy are not meant for lithium ion anymore. They're meant for the LiPo or the newer version, which Tesla's using in 2 of its new cars, maybe 3. I suspect the Cybertruck, as ugly as it is, has the new kinds of batteries in it. So that Victron controller is also controlled by Bluetooth. And here it's connecting right now, but I'll show you the status here in a moment. There we go. It's charging with a whopping 56 watts, but you can see it's showing the input voltage to the charge controller is 55 volts, and the output is 45.63. That's the battery's voltage right now, at 1.1 amps of charge. Now, why, you might ask, why is the input 1.0 amps, but the output is 1.1? That's because this is an MPPT controller, maximum power point. And it basically has an inverter in it, push more current into the battery. So it is converting between 54 volts at 1 amp to 45 volts at 1.1 amp, and it charges faster and better that way. Now, we have more to show you, though. Let me turn my light back on. I needed to run 12-volt devices on here. So I needed a 12-volt converter, down converter. which is hiding behind this connector. That heatsink down there is the 12-volt down converter, which provides 12 volts to run the lights and other stuff because most LED lighting isn't meant for 48 volts. So how do I switch that on and off? I switch that on and off with a solid-state relay that's up there that is triggered by, well, there, see, I turned it on. I turned it on by turning on the key to the ignition, the main key. And what I had to do, you see, we have a charge indicator that's made for lead acid batteries, but it's got 48 volts on the back of it when the key is on. So I used it as the trigger for the solid state relay, as you can see in the schematic. The charge controller does what it feels like. I haven't changed anything yet. It has pushed up to putting 4 amps into the battery. We still only have a 1 amp for a balance current, and interestingly, it is not, there it is, 0.9 amps right now on balance current. Anyway, it will ramp up and charge at a higher rate when it feels like it. It doesn't do it right away when you first turn it on. Oh, another thing, the battery management system, by default, by normal wiring, would stay on all the time. You don't want that. I added a little switch right here so that I can turn it on and off. The B+ voltage to the BMS is what controls it, whether it's on or off, and it's on at the moment, which is good because it wouldn't charge otherwise. Voltage considerations. The battery level display shows pretty low here, but it was designed for lead acid batteries. A full 48 volt battery bank of lead acid batteries is 51.2 volts. At full charge, which remember I'm not taking them to full charge, these Model S modules will measure 50.4 volts. I don't want to charge them to full charge, so I set the max charge to 48.72. So the charge meter will never show full with this system. But I'm considering making another bank of batteries. I have a bad Tesla module that I bought. It wasn't bad when I got it, but it went bad soon after. So I can take it apart and rip out a number of the batteries, however many it takes to build up another bank. Then I would have 13 banks instead of 12, which is an odd number, and I don't know whether the BMS can handle that or not. It would give me a little more life to the batteries, a little more charge, because I got 13 banks instead of 12. It'll give me a higher voltage, meaning that the gauges will read more sensibly, and the cart will run a little faster. While reading up on this, I found out that there are people that hop up golf carts by taking a 36 volt golf cart and putting a 48 volt battery system in it. Golf carts come in both 36 volts and 48 volts. So they're overvolting, if you will, the motor, but the motor runs much faster because of that. A little more word on the charger here. The charger should regulate maximum voltage, and the BMS should be a backup failsafe. It should not be the primary regulator. Unfortunately, I haven't found a good configurable charger that is pre-configured for lithium ion. Now they're made for LiFePO batteries which use different parameters. This one is a good charger. You configure it with an app over Bluetooth, as I showed you. It is configurable, but there's no way to have a hard limit on the charge. It's a bit soft on the limit, and it might quit below the configured limit. So to get exactly the charge I want is a bunch of tweaking and luck. Both the charger and the BMS use Bluetooth to talk to a phone or tablet. I have an old tablet that does this fine, so I'm going to mount it on the dash and make this whole thing look like a Tesla. Okay, we're on the mountain now. I've charged the buggy up with solar panels, and I'm not happy with where it's charged. I don't have the charger tweaked right yet because, see, it only says 48 volts, and that's a full charge. I also don't have the dial set right, but you have to set it when it's at a certain level. But I'll take care of that. So here we go, cruising up the road in the Tesla cart with the Tesla batteries. They work pretty well. I'm going up about 600 vertical feet and 3/4 of a mile or so of road. It'll do that about 3 times before it needs some battery, some charge. It might do it 4, but 3 is safe. We're going up a 15% grade, but basically the 600 feet is what matters.